We are live, and I'm coming at you with five. Welcome again, everyone, to another episode of Gavin Richard Presents on my channel, YouTube, GBoot2786, and on my those on Facebook on my self-entitled page. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are feeling blessed and highly favored this evening. We're gonna get started in a little bit. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Subscribe to channel GBoot2786. We're gonna go in tonight, family. I'm not gonna tell you how long we're gonna be, but we're just gonna be going in on a lot of things that are going on. Hit that like and subscribe. Like this video. Like this live channel. We're gonna be going in on a couple of things. Just waiting for some people to come in. Who's in the chat room? Who's watching right now? Why don't you leave a comment? Say hello. What's going on, everyone? Also, I'd X to the channel. You see the ticker at the bottom. See, donate to the Cash App, GavinRichardEsq, along with Google Pay, Gavin.grich1@gmail.com. I see Jay is in the chat room here. What's up, Jay? Let's see who else is here. Who else is watching? We get a lot of people coming in. We got some people coming in. Come on. We're waiting for it to get started, guys. Just starting off, man. It's June, and already we have a tropical storm that's headed towards Louisiana. I mean, tropical depression, tropical storm Cristobal, which is expected to arrive this Sunday. So, and it's been increasingly hot, and we're just in June. Oh, May was not as bad. But if it's hot like this in June, I was out at the protest earlier today, and I've uploaded some video on my YouTube, on my Facebook channel. I'm also gonna upload some interviews I did, but so you guys can take a look later this weekend. The other thing I want to get to you guys, let you guys know too, that I have a podcast, Gavin Richard Presents, that is on Anchor. I would ask you guys please go to that podcast and check out the commentary. Some things, I have my first 2 episodes up. I think you're going to like those. And I've got to do another one. I'm going to be doing another one tomorrow that I'll be posting and upload for you all by tomorrow evening. So you guys, please check that out. Come on, somebody say something. So I got 7 people right now. Some are on GBoot2786 on the YouTube channel. I got some on Facebook. Who's here? Anybody want to leave a comment? Jay Chris is watching. So, yeah, man. But I was at the protest out in St. Bernard, and right now, which was that was started by this young brother, DeAndre Sean. I will actually, we'll see if we can talk to him one day. I didn't. I was out there earlier today, and there were. I noticed while I was out there, how everything was set up. What's up, Garrick? They had us march not on Judge Perez. Now, those that know the history of New Orleans or Louisiana and about Judge Perez know that Judge Perez was a staunch segregationist and racist. And St. Bernard Parish has a history, just from my dad, everything that's Klan country. Now, my experiences, I haven't witnessed anything totally like that, but my father came from a different era. My father remember telling me a story when he was on Parish Road going into St. Bernard from New Orleans, how he and my grandfather and my other uncles were in the car and they actually saw the Klan marching. So that's the type of stuff that was going on. But the brother that was in charge of it was St. Bernard Revolution. He organized the whole event. So one day, one day we're going to try and get him on the show to talk about this. But we were not allowed to go on Judge Perez Highway. They had it blocked off, and we were only allowed to march all around Sidney Torres Park in St. Bernard Parish. So all we did was walk around the park one time, went back to the picnic area, and we listened to other people talk and so forth. And marching and protesting per se, people, I support freedom of speech all the way. obviously, and I was there to cover this. But marching and protesting, like John Henry Clark even said this. He called it a waste of shoe leather. Now you know John Henry Clark. John Henry Clark was a great black historian. He had a documentary back in 1996 that was produced by the brother uh, Wesley Snipes, and that was entitled, I'm just getting it on Stars in Black. But he called it a waste of shoe leather. And reason why John Henry Clark said all of that was because the main goal that African Americans that should be going for is about building an economic base. And Dr. Claude Anderson talks about that because that's what people truly respect. It's money and power. And money, of course, is power. You know, that's why you look at the Asian community, they're able to come into block and our communities, whether it's gas stations, whether it's liquor stores, whether it's chicken shacks or whatever, food places, whatever you want to call it, and they make thousands of dollars each month. I know of people who have actually become millionaires, and if you read Dr. Anderson's book, he even talked about how Arabs came into Detroit, not even 1% of the Detroit population, and they controlled almost 45% of the wealth because they honored in 1 year $69 million. And I talked about that in my last video that I had uploaded. But you guys can just check that out and look at Go Get Power Economics and read that because it's educational. Reading is fundamental. Keyword fun. Go ahead and pick up a book because it's not illegal yet. So at any rate, yeah, man. But of course, I support people's free speech, but I'm not really. Especially, I notice when you've seen a lot of these protests, they get co-opted by different groups. You know, if you have people that are there for LGBTQ reasons or immigrant reasons or whatever, it takes away from what we're really talking about. And if you look at even Black Lives Matters charter points, I've raised my eyebrows about some of it and some of the people in leadership. So I don't really align myself with it too much, but I'm against police brutality. Of course, I support a movement against that. So let's see. Garrick is watching. Barrington's watching. Justin Jack is watching. What's up, guys? Garrick says, let's not forget they were given an apology, reparations, and also they were left alone. They didn't have laws passed and drugs thrown in their neighborhoods. I believe you're talking about the Japanese in the internment camps during World War II here in the United States. Garrick, is that what you're referring to at this point? But yeah, it happened in the 1940s where Japanese were thrown into internment camps. And so what I was going to say is that documentary that we actually have, hold on, by the way. Yeah, and that actually happened with blacks. We've had worse. You had insurance companies here in the United States that benefited from slavery. You had multiple people, corporations like Chase Manhattan Bank. And who else? You're talking about insurance companies, I believe. Charles Schwab. I could be wrong. Just let me know. But there are a lot of companies that benefited from that. I believe Wells Fargo, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. But all of that stuff, and of course, black people for years being denied loans to fair housing, being denied loans to create jobs and business, create businesses who are entrepreneurs. So the documentary that was produced by Wesley Snipes. Let's see here. Excuse me, guys. I'm just doing these things at the spare moment. So it's right at the spur of the moment. A Great and Mighty Walk. That's it. Yeah. If you go look at that very powerful documentary, uh, Mighty Walk. That was the actual documentary that aired back in 1996, hour and 30 minutes. It used to come on Stars in Black, and they have a bunch of stuff that's on there too. I've seen Michael Brown documentary that's on there that you guys should really check out because they go in depth about what really happened with Michael Brown. If you look at our brother's show, Afro Synergy News, brother T West, he even talks about the looking at the police report, not the police report, excuse me, the grand jury testimony from Darren Wilson, where Michael Brown, he states Michael Brown never reached inside the car, that his whole story was bullshit. So just reading is fundamental, guys. Don't let the media tell you everything and tell you how to feel sorry for something or jump on an agenda. And there's a lot of protests that are going on, and we're going to get right into the topic of protests, which of course is quarterback everybody knows by the name of Drew Brees. Now, let me do this. Let me share the screen with you all tonight. Harry, what's up? All right. So earlier this happened this past Wednesday. Drew Brees made the comment, "I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag." Now, Brees was on Yahoo Finance, and they were asking him different questions. Now, there's something interesting about Drew Brees and why I was thinking about this and leading into it, because he gives an apology, a half-assed apology at first on Thursday, and then he posted a video, I believe earlier today, saying how he's sorry he was and how they had a long way to go and understand the black community and how we should be sympathetic to them, yada yada yada. And I can be wrong if somebody is truly sorry for what they've said and done. Now, let's just get back to the actual comments that were made. And I'm going to give my analysis and why I honestly don't think Drew Brees should have apologized. I do not. And you're going to hear my answer why. But first, let me actually pull up the clip that we have here. So hold on one second. This is the video. He was doing an interview with Yahoo Finance, and they were talking about the social justice protests that have been going on across the country. Now, Drew spoke. He's being interviewed by this guy. I don't know his name, but let's see if we can hear.
Mr. Brees, and actually, this morning you put out on Twitter something that was very interesting, in which you said it was about action. You pointed out that there's a saying in every locker room that I have been in: don't just talk about it, be about it. Your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. So, Drew, if you can unmute, I'm curious, how do you turn that into action? As you're unmuting, I'm going to go to John and see what he has to say, how you turn that into action with franchise owners.
Yeah, so first of all, I appreciate you having us on. I think it's leading by example. Franchisees, they join a system because they want to be part of something just bigger than themselves. And we always say in franchising, you're a business for yourself, but not by yourself. And especially in times like this, I think the franchisees, it could be, for a small business owner, it could be fairly lonely when they're at home by themselves. They need to lean on their corporate partners to demonstrate the type of leadership that Drew is probably referring to.
Drew, I see that you're unmuted. I'm curious, could you respond to that? Because, I mean, you are a leader. You took the knee several years ago along with all of your teammates, but you've also talked about that sometimes protests or demonstrations, for instance, in the middle of the national anthem might be divisive. So what is the action we should take now?
Well, that's not an easy question to answer. But at the end of the day, I think my response was basically to reinforce my belief that God created us all equal, and I think that we all have a responsibility to love each other and to respect each other. I try to live my life by two basic Christian fundamentals, and that is love the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I think that we accomplish greater things as a community, as a society, and as a country when we do it together. And I think that we are all equipped with things, and we can use that with each other and for each other. I think we can accomplish some amazing things. And obviously these are trying times during our country, certainly coming out of this COVID crisis and then entering into another crisis, or really these two compounding with each other. I think we all recognize the changes that need to take place. And I do think it's about action versus just, everybody's going to social media and kind of saying their piece. Obviously there are riots and there are protests, and people are certainly out there showing their frustration as well. But I think at the end of the day, we need to find ways to work together, to provide opportunities for one another, to continue to move our country forward to a bigger and better place.
Drew, Dan Roberts here. Thanks for joining us. If we stick with this topic right now, everyone is looking back now at Kaepernick's protests from a few years ago, and obviously they were always about police brutality. And now it's...
Now I'm playing a video, not because I'm interested in hearing about Yahoo Finance, but I wanted you all to hear the whole video in context so that there's no mistake in what Drew Brees is saying.
And a lot of people expect that we will see players kneeling again, even when the NFL season starts. I'm curious how you think the NFL will and should respond to that. And of course, you're such a leader in the league. What is your responsibility as a leader in times like this for the rest of your teammates and players in the league?
Well, I will by disrespecting the flag of the United States of America or our country. Let me just tell you what I see or what I feel when the national anthem is played and when I look at the flag of the United States. I envision my two grandfathers who fought for this country during World War II, one in the Army and one in the Marine Corps, both risking their lives to protect our country and to try to make our country and this world a better place. So every time I stand with my hand over my heart, looking at that flag and singing that I think about, and in many cases, it brings me to tears, thinking about all that has been sacrificed, not just those in the military, but for that matter, those throughout the civil rights movements of the 60s, and everyone and all that has been endured by so many people up until this point. And is everything right with our country right now? No, it's not.
No shit.
We still have a long way to go. But I think what you do by standing there and showing respect to the flag with your hand over your heart is it shows unity. It shows that we are all in this together. We can all do better. Solution.
Okay. Well, that's 5 minutes and 36 seconds of it. So I'm starting a whole video, but I want to stop right there because he states, I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag. Now, he was asked this question. Now, how he could have said it, he could have said, well, you know what? I personally stand for the national anthem and put my hand over my heart and give my reasons why, because I support our country. I believe it's a respectful thing to do, but I am trying to understand the African American community and what the plight that they're going through and why my brothers who I play with, who protect me on the field, that is mostly in a league that is predominantly African American, I'm going to understand their plight. And so I'm not going to diss them like when the president called them sons of bitches. And Drew Brees even had knelt down before previously. So here's why a lot of people were so upset with Drew Brees and his comments. Yes, Drew Brees is entitled to his opinion. Yeah, freedom of speech is guaranteed to everyone. But you said that you would never agree with anyone disrespecting the flag. So you were dismissive of the statements that men like Colin Kaepernick or Eric Reed Malcolm Jenkins, and I know there's beef between those guys, but you were dismissive of the message that they were talking about and what was being raised. Even if you didn't agree with the style of it, you just didn't address the issues. You were nonchalant about them. I will never agree. Now, he talked about how he said both of my grandfathers fought for the U.S. military in World War II. So every time I stand with my hand over my heart, looking at that flag and singing the national anthem, that's what I think about. Thinking about all that has been sacrificed, not just those in the military, but for that matter, those throughout the civil rights movement of the 60s, and all that has been endured by so many people. And is everything right with our country right now? No, it's not. We still have a long way to go, but I think, well, you already heard what he said. But I'm looking at this comment when he talks about his grandfathers serving in the military. I want you guys, let me share the screen. Hold on. I'm going to share this with you all. Okay? He says military. All right. These guys right here. This man on the far left corner is Anatole Francis Richard Jr. He served in the Navy. This is my grandfather. Okay? And this is Arthur Duplessis Jr. This is my other grandfather. You guys see where I get my good looks from. All right. Look at the medals that my grandfather won. And look what war this was in. American Campaign, World War II. Okay? Both of my grandfathers drew. This man here, Anatole Richard and Arthur Duplessis, fought in World War II just like your grandfathers. And when they came back from World War II, unlike your grandfathers and so many other white men, as Brother Shannon Sharp pointed out eloquently on Undisputed Thursday morning, black people who fought in World War II had to fight in segregated units. My grandfather did not get these awards until he was in his 80s. When my grandfather came back from World War II and from the Navy, my grandfather Anatole, he worked in the post office for 20 plus years, where they had segregated bathrooms, where when he would be delivering mail, he would hear white women saying, "Give me my mail, nigga." That's the type of stuff we all had to do. My grandparents had to go through. So this whole thing about patriotism and saluting the flag and so forth, that has nothing to do with what the protest is all about. Not a damn thing. And to be real and fair, I do stand for the flag myself. I support blacks in the military. I do, because this is our country. And many of our brothers and sisters from the beginning of this foundation of this country, from the American Revolution, paid the ultimate sacrifice. Look up Crispus Attucks, the first man to die in the American Revolution. Look up James Whipple, who was a spy for the Americans. Hell, and you look at the Civil War with the 54th Regiment, with Harriet Tubman. You look at Martin Delany. You look at Frederick Douglass campaigning to get black soldiers into the United States Army. Look up Robert Brown, who escaped from slavery to join the Navy. And he did it by pretending to be on a Confederate side. He took command of their ship, actually, and blew up the other Confederate ships on it. Go read that story. So this had nothing to do with the flag. This has nothing to do with veterans. They told you it never had anything to do with the veterans. And if that you care so much about veterans, why is it that veterans make up almost 40% or more of the homeless population here in America? Why we don't take care of them if we love them so much? Now, earlier today, Brees apologized. And he sent the letter to Donald Trump. And of course, when he made those comments back on Yahoo News, oh man, they told him a new asshole. Tyrann Mathieu called him out saying, don't forget you represent New Orleans. You had Michael Thomas calling him out. Alvin Kamara and a few others called him out. Emmanuel Sanders called him out. LeBron James called him out, the biggest voice there. LeBron James, the big world's greatest athlete, world's greatest basketball player, called him out. Because you're wrong, Drew. You're wrong. Shannon Sharp was talking about how Drew Brees, it's time for him to retire. And I saw people, if you go to my Facebook channel, I had already talked about this yesterday about how I feel about Drew Brees. I don't really get upset about Drew Brees' comments because they're coming from a white man. Drew Brees has never lived the experience of being black in America. So how can he relate how one group of people feel when he has been privileged to have a better way of life? And you play with black Americans ever since you were a boy yourself, a child. When you played Pee-wee football, when you got into high school, when you got into college, you had black players you threw the ball to. You still do. I've always said this because people talking about wanted to boycott the NFL over this whole thing. And I felt this way too. I felt that business owners, when you work on the clock, if you work, let's say for a television network and you're sitting in front of a desk, if you just sat there and took a knee while the news was going on and you're disrupting and protesting on your boss's time, they got a right to complain. On the flip side of it, there was never a rule in place that said that they had to stand for the national anthem. It was only because Trump went out and complained about it and then calling those players sons of bitches and telling them that they were going to be fired, that they should be fired. Anybody who kneels for the American flag during the national anthem should be fired. And today, Donald Trump even tweeted out a defense of Drew Brees. I don't get caught up in stuff like this. Don't get angry and waste your energy on Drew Brees. Now, he apologized for it. Honestly, didn't think, he's entitled to his opinion. That's true. But Colin Kaepernick was entitled to his opinion. Malcolm Jenkins was entitled to their opinions. Black players are entitled to their opinions as well, and they were silenced. And when you read this article too, Roger Goodell states that the NFL was wrong for not listening to the players with all of the stuff all of these things that were going on. And frankly, it's just too little, too fucking late. We can't expect those who discriminate against us, those that look different from us, to actually save us. I don't care about all that. I don't get caught up in all of that. I saw Shannon Sharp on Undisputed. Shannon Sharp was saying it's time for Drew Brees to retire. Let me see if we can look at that clip right fast. Sharp says, "I will never respect that man." Let's see if we can get that clip up right quick. Okay, here comes the dreaded ads. Let's see.
The action. The superstars. Live and all new. Friday Night SmackDown. Live at 8 Eastern on Fox.
Your thoughts? Are you surprised?
And let me just say this too right quick. I've also had uncles that have served in, great uncles and uncles as well in my family that have served in the military. I have cousins that do it. I have one currently that's stationed in Turkey in the Air Force, and I have nothing but love for them. Protesting is the greatest form of patriotism. It's the great form of patriotism to criticize your country. Teddy Roosevelt said that. So this has nothing to do with veterans.
By this, what's your reaction?
No, and what's made the black fight so hard is people like Drew Brees, Skip, because if you can't get a guy that grew up with blacks in the locker room, from pee-wee to high school to college to the NFL, to understand the black man's plight, who will? What about guys that's not around blacks on a daily basis, that have not been around blacks on a daily basis like Drew Brees? Drew Brees said something, Skip, that I found insulting, to be quite honest with you. He said, my grandfathers fought in World War II. I did not know two men won World War II, Skip. They should be commended. But did he know that black men fought alongside his grandfather in World War II, although in segregated military? Skip, they were fighting in a foreign land for a freedom that when they came home, they did not enjoy like Drew Brees' grandfathers did. Did Drew know that black men that wore military, when they came home, that were caught in their military uniforms, a lot of times were beaten, jailed, and even killed? Does he realize that, Skip, that every war that's ever been fought in American history, black men have fought valiantly in that war? In the Revolutionary War, Skip, they said the blacks were fighting for their master's freedom that they were not going to get. Even though they were told, if you pick up arms and fight alongside us, upon you returning, you could gain your freedom. When they came back home, Skip, guess what? They were enslaved again. And a lot of reasons, Skip, George Washington signed the Military Act in 1792 saying blacks couldn't join the military.
Yep.
They fought so well, and some of the officers said they fought so well and valiantly, he took it out. But guess what the British did? British said, if you run away and fight with us, we'll give you your freedom. And immediately George Washington rescinded the order. I can't believe you, Drew. What would make you think at this moment, Skip, 8-9 days after George Floyd had lost his life, that you would bring up the military and the flag again, Skip? I told you, Skip, if you want to talk about B, and I don't want to talk about B, I'm going to talk about C, I'm going to talk about D, I'm going to talk about everything except what you want to talk about, because that's an issue I do not want to face. Drew, blacks fought in World War II alongside your grandfather and did not have the freedoms that they had when they came home, Skip, although they had sacrificed the exact same thing as his grandfathers did. So let me get this straight, Skip. I sacrifice as much as you do in a foreign land fighting for freedom for people that when I get home, I don't get. And Drew's like, that flag means so much. Drew, do you realize, think about the black man, that flag, for 250 years in slavery, another 150 years of 100 years of Jim Crow. And so you automatically assume that a black man should feel the same pride for the flag as you and your grandfathers? Skip, that's what makes me upset, Skip, is that some think that only whites served in the military. Man, that flag means so much. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, I guarantee you, if you poll some players in the NFL, they have grandfathers or great-grandfathers that served in World War II and World War I. Skip, this is what was said. In August of 1917, there was a senator from Missouri named James Vardaman, and he warned that once a black soldier was allowed to see himself as an American hero, it was one step to the conclusion that his political rights must be respected. Bringing black soldiers home to the South with the expectation of equality, he predicted, would inevitably lead to disaster. He said black soldiers as potential community leaders would be terrifying and a disaster and would be a mass movement for the African-American right. Even though they went overseas to fight for freedoms. When they came home, they were not to enjoy that. And Drew Brees still doesn't seem to get it. Now, he issued an apology, Skip, but it's meaningless because the guys know that he spoke his heart the very first time around.
Correct.
Now, I don't know what Drew's going to do, but he probably should just go ahead and retire now. It will never be the same. Take it from a guy that's been a leader in the locker room for a number of years. At every step, Skip, I've been the leader in the locker room. What he said, they're going to like, oh, yeah, no, they will never look at him the same. Because he spoke his heart and skipped and what he said.
And that's a good
what
thing.
He said,
that's a good
how
thing.
He said it. He was defiant.
That's a good thing.
Respect the man. Even after all this, nobody had even mentioned the flag. He brought that up on his own. Drew, I don't know what you was thinking. I don't know what you hope to accomplish. But whatever you hope to accomplish, it failed miserably. Black people have been fighting for this country. Even though they did not get the rights that the flag said. That flag that skipped, I thought the flag meant something. See, I get the flag, the cloth that wave in the wind as the wind blows, but it means something. It's supposed to mean something. It's supposed to mean everything for all people, freedom, liberties. But if the black man doesn't have the same freedoms and liberty as the white, what good is the flag? And Drew thinks that, well, I got me, that's what it means to me. I feel a sense of pride, a sense of honor. Everybody doesn't feel like that, Drew, because it hadn't represented them in the exact same way.
Only flags Drew's probably going to be seeing this upcoming football season are the yellow flags for the roughing the passes he's going to see, because that offensive line, I'm telling y'all, I'm a big Saints fan, and don't get me wrong, I grew up watching the NFL. I grew up with the Saints before Drew Brees even came onto the scene. When they had the Billy Joe years, the Aaron Brooks years, which were mediocre at best. I remember the Wade Wilsons and Bobby Heberts, so I go back with all of that. The Dome Patrol, greatest linebacker core ever in NFL history. But Drew Brees, hey, he's apologized, but the cat is out of the bag. And yeah, of course, before that, you had people that were just so quick to forgive him and so forth. And, I get why his fellow teammates, of course, had to, I guess, publicly come out and forgive him. Who knows if Peyton talked to them, who knows if and told them they needed to do that. And, they got to build unity in that locker room. But when somebody says something, obviously that is against you, it sticks with you. You can forgive, but are you going to forget it? Now, Drew's apologized. Let's see if we read his apology here. If you go to, of course, they post this stuff on Instagram. Who knows? I think somebody wrote it for him. But, he did a video. He says, I am your ally. Drew Brees apologizes again on Instagram for his protest comments. And, living here in New Orleans, I like to see, of course, I listen to WWL. And the only reason why I listen to WWL is to watch the comments, because I know somebody's going to say something racist. They always do. So, hold on one second. But no, I don't think Brees should apologize, because we know where he stands. We know where they stand, and that's a good thing. That is a perfectly good thing when we know where people stand. Now, one of the issues I have with Brees too, and here's the thing, he can always talk that and say, I'm your ally, but I remember this and I forgot. Now, this is that's the apology that he wrote in a letter he wrote to Donald Trump. And he says, we can no longer use the flag to turn people away or distract them from the real issues that face our black community, Brees said. We did this back in 2017, and regretfully, I brought it back with my comments this week. We must stop talking about the flag and shift our attention to the real issues of systematic racial injustice, economic oppression, police brutality, and judicial and prison reform. We are at a critical juncture in our nation's history. If not now, then when? We as a white community need to listen and learn from the pain and suffering of our Black communities. We must acknowledge the problems, identify the solutions, and then put this into action. The Black community cannot do this alone. And Brees wrote that to Donald Trump. He addressed it to it. Now, my issue with Brees and his comments, I don't know if you guys know this, but Brees owns a series of walk-ons that he is associated with. And anybody that's from New Orleans knows what I'm about to talk about. Okay? Now, every Essence Fest, Essence Fest is usually held in July, on the 4th of July weekend. For those that know that. And Essence Fest, when they come into town, there's a lot of shit that goes on. Even during Bayou Classic, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. You got people that will, when they have these events that come on, like Bayou Classic, for instance, when you stay at these hotels downtown, they'll put a tag on your arm. And I noticed, and I've seen where there have been other events, white people that come into town, like say for Mardi Gras, that shit doesn't happen to them. So I don't want to say the wrong information because I could be wrong about this, but I do know Drew Brees is associated with the Walk-Ons restaurants, and this was in 2016, and it was this was the 22nd anniversary of Essence Fest that was in town and was expected to bring in $200 million. This is from WDSU. The restaurant located in the middle of all the Essence activity. This is off of Poydras and Loyola. Those of you know what I'm talking about. Well, they close almost every 4th of July weekend, supposedly for maintenance work. Now, I remember back in 2019, there was the franchise owner in Covington got fired because he made a racist rant, or had posted a racially charged rant on Facebook during Halloween. Of course, that was in Covington. I don't think that had anything to do with Drew Brees or the restaurant per se. But I do know for a fact that they have had these issues before. And those of you that live in New Orleans knows about this building closing during the 4th of July weekend. Shout out if you do. Now, somebody could find out for me. Different people were talking about they closed from June 29th to July 6th due to repairs. It set off a social media firestorm. Rob Lawrence called it what it is: racist actions by a racist establishment, point blank, period, closed for 4th of July weekend. I find it odd that your restaurant was shut down during a peak weekend in the city. And let's be clear, money is everything. So when you're talking about reservations or stuff like that, oh, sorry about that. Now, this was in 2016. But Drew Brees, I know, owns or is strongly associated with walk-ons. Now, I don't. All right. So that had nothing to do with it. But he is co-owner, he and his wife, Brittany, they co-own walk-ons, if I'm not mistaken. And they were trying to bring one near the LSU campus back in 2019. But he's associated with them. Now, I don't know if he owns that particular one off Poydras, but I've heard a lot of, and they have over 25 restaurants across Louisiana, Texas, and Alabama and Mississippi. But he's associated with it. So if Drew is sorry for what he's for his words, I'm just curious what he's going to put into action. How would he address something like this? Now, of course, the 4th of July weekend, there's not going to be an Essence Fest due to the pandemic of COVID-19. But every 4th of July, I know that restaurant closes and people always complain about it. So that's interesting. But yeah, I'm looking here. Brees and his wife, Brittany, have been co-owners of Walk-On's Enterprise since 2015. Walk-On's, which has its flagship restaurant and corporate headquarters is short distance from Small Sliders, has grown to 25 restaurants across Louisiana. Small Sliders is based in, I think it's based in Baton Rouge. And I'm sorry. This is a restaurant near, because the co-owned founder of Walk-On's Bistro and Bar is Brandon Landry. And that Small Slide was going to be built on LSU's campus on Nicholson. All right. So I'm just wondering what he's going to put in action. And miss me with he's donated millions of dollars and so forth, but that doesn't change how you feel. You can give all of that money all you want, but that doesn't change how a person may feel or what they're thinking about something. I mean, hell, you have had, and I'm not going to compare Drew Brees to, anyone like a Cecil Rhodes or to a staunch racist or a violent person. No, he doesn't deserve that. But there have been countless people that have given donations to different groups and have done vile things or said vile, stupid things before. Now, I don't put him in that group. I wouldn't compare it with with the Hulk Hogan incident, but African Americans were disappointed in Drew Brees, especially here in New Orleans, because New Orleans is different, and the Saints, anybody will tell you who's been outside of New Orleans that comes here, and even the NFL, I think, has acknowledged the fans are different here. Like it's like something we live for and there's a close connection with the Saints fans and the New Orleans Saints organization. It's just the way it is. And so being that we're a predominantly black city, we were disappointed in what Drew Brees said. And, I saw something that Stevie Ray once said when he talked about the Hulk Hogan incident. And this is why I bring this up. He said the reason why black Americans were disappointed in Hulk Hogan was that little black children looked up to Hulk Hogan, just like they looked up to, we all looked up to Leave It to Beaver and all these different shows because that's all that's on. Back in the day, wrestling was all we watched as kids. So we looked up to those guys. They were heroes. There was good versus evil. So we all watched that. We were all into that shit. So people were disappointed with Drew Brees. And that's all I'm going to spend on that because I've spent too much time on it. So, but yeah, I digress. So let's move on. The next thing I wanted to talk about, guys, is this thing that's going on right now. We have this issue with our brother, Mr. George Floyd. Of course, there's protests going all over the world. And this article broke on TMZ. So I want y'all to check this out. All right. So I saw this earlier today. Now, there's been a lot of shady stuff going on with all of these protests, from these provocateurs that have been knocking out windows to I've seen white people spray painting Black Lives Matter who are not white, who are not black, but white. I've seen all types of weird shit going on. You, of course, had the the Buffalo PD, that ACT team, 57 of their emergency response team actually resigned because cops who pushed this elderly man in onto the ground, and this elderly man obviously suffered some type of concussion. He also was bleeding out of the head. He had to be rushed to the hospital. Those cops got suspended, and they tried to blame the whole incident on him, by the way. Now, George Floyd, this is what the news states on TMZ. And Lord knows I do not like TMZ per se. But it says here, George Floyd had fentanyl in his system when he was killed and died from a heart attack. Now, this was according to the medical examiner. Now, you all know when this autopsy report came out last week, they tried to paint George Floyd as having hypertension and cardiovascular disease, and trying to make it look like basically he was too unhealthy to survive the police brutality that he received. Basically, if he had eaten an avocado salad, he'd be alive right now. But this is what they state, and I go further. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner released its toxicology findings and say George died from cardiopulmonary arrest, which complicated law enforcement's subdual, restraint, and neck compression of him. That is critical because the report also says that this under how the injury occurred. It says George experienced a cardiopulmonary arrest while being restrained by law enforcement. So if you look at this, they say manner of death, homicide, still. And if you read TMZ, they say, in other words, he suffered a heart attack while they were arresting him. Now, when you look at the family autopsy that was conducted, they say mechanical asphyxia due to Derek Chauvin's knee on his neck and another officer on his back. And those 3 officers were also charged. Now, why all of this is critically important, and I mentioned this, they also talking about the fact that he had fentanyl in his system and signs of methamphetamine use. What they are doing when they lay this out, brothers and sisters, is that they are trying to make everything appear that George Floyd contributed to his own death. That's why this is important. Now, nobody bought anything that was going in that initial autopsy report because it was complete bullshit. They actually said in the autopsy report that they saw no signs of asphyxiation. Yet, when you look at the video, you clearly see the officer's knee in the man's neck. You saw another video from behind where there 2 other officers are on his back. One's got his knee in his back. So that compressed his airway, made it difficult for him to breathe with 3 different men on him. 3, let's just say, I don't know how much Derek Chauvin weighs, but it looks like he weighs a little bit over 200 pounds. Then you got another officer over 200 pounds, then another, and you're talking about laying there for nearly 8 minutes. You know, who believes this bullshit? I'm just going to tell y'all, when this goes to trial, and I clicked right here, this is the Minnesota Attorney General, the black man that they got to be the face of this. And I don't know, he may do a great job, and maybe this was a way, obviously, to remove the district attorney who, Mike Freeman, who it appeared he didn't even want to bring the charges, because he even went out that Thursday talking about how it's going to be difficult to bring charges or how it was unlikely. And he had to clarify his remarks the next day because that's causing an uproar. because he said all of that without the autopsy results being released. He said all of that without all of the information being released. But like we've always said, you didn't need the autopsy report to make an arrest because the murder or the homicide took place in plain view. If you shoot somebody in front of thousands of witnesses, the cops don't need to wait 24 hours, 48 hours just to make an arrest. If it happened right in front of them, they could arrest you. This was being recorded. This was a lynching. Those are the three officers: Thomas Lane, Alexander Kilton, and Thao, excuse me. I heard that, and I don't know how true it is, but Thao is actually the brother-in-law of Derek Chauvin. I don't know how true that is. Nothing has come out, but and now we're looking at it. Derek Chauvin was actually the lead officer. He was the lead officer. And some of those guys, one of those guys, I believe it was J. Alexander King. I believe it was his first day of work, first week of work. So these guys were just coming off on the job. So he's already said, Ellison has said, winning a conviction will be hard. See if we can click on a video right fast. This is 2 minutes, 56 seconds. All right, so y'all heard that. Now, I want to make a correction. That was Thomas Lane Thomas Lane, who's one of the police officers that were charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter, he had actually been on, this was his third shift with the police department. Now, from what I'm looking at, he was the one. No, that was Jay. Excuse me, I got this. I'm looking at something different. No, Thomas Lane joined the police department in 2019 as a cadet, and he had only been on the police force for 4 days when Floyd died, according to his attorney, Earl Gray. So already I could tell, well, he's inexperienced. Did he know better? You know, I could tell that the defense is going to be eating at this and eating on top of the initial medical report. And all I got to say, if these guys get off, what you see today is everybody being nice. I think all hell is going to break loose if these guys get acquitted. You know, Rodney King was one thing. That was just Los Angeles that burned to the ground. You're talking about an entire country that's ready to blow. And of course, you know, like I said earlier about the protests, this is not all black people that are doing this. There are people that are co-opting this. So that's it for me, guys. It's been a late night, but much respect to George Floyd. I see his brother Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson went off on Drew Brees as well as Ed Reed, who's from Destrehan. Ed Reed went off on him. And of course, they were talking about Donald Trump because Trump said today it was a great day for George Floyd during the signing ceremony. He was talking about jobs and said George is looking down. And I guess, you know, of course, a lot of people didn't like that, just mentioning that. But and then there's some breaking news. Biden has clinched the Democratic nomination, which was no surprise there since he's the only one running. So just got that update. But guys, that's it for me. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. I will be back tomorrow. I will be doing the podcast. Please subscribe to this channel. Let's see. Whoa, I just seen this now. Just Z1 says hello. She said, "How you doing, Just Z?" Yeah. All hell is going to be breaking loose. You know, and I'm not, you know, if y'all heard my thoughts about this election, look, don't let them fool you. You know, I don't think Joe Biden is going to change a damn thing. You know, it's the same thing with Donald Trump. I think what you see is what you get. You're choosing between Satan or Lucifer. Which one you prefer? I know some people are going to disagree with me. I've already talked about this, but hey, if you're doing, you need tangibles. We need tangibles right now. We don't need, you know, fear of voting out of fear, enticing fear to get a vote. Give us some tangibles. Tell us what you're going to do for us. That's what we need. Demand your vote, people, or people going to keep walking over you. Demand accountability for your vote in exchange for tangibles, because what's going to happen? Candidates will continue to walk over you, and that's all we've gotten since black people have been allowed to vote, roughly. That's what we've gotten, especially recently in these last 3-4 presidential elections. That's it for me, guys. Subscribe to the channel, GBoo2786. I'm Gavin Richard with Gavin Richard Presents. Hello, Just Z1. Thank you for coming on the show, baby. Yeah, you guys please donate as well. Gavin Richard Esquire. I don't know anything about that foot in the background. You can stop sharing this. Subscribe to the channel. Please donate. I will be back very soon. Good night.